So good afternoon, Namaste. My name is Amar Singh. I'm the Secretary General of MRAI. A very warm welcome to globally recognized panelists, Mr. Irfon Watkins, CEO of DOVU, Mr. Sanjay Mehta, President of Material Recycling Association of India, Mr. Tridip Goswami, Founding Director, Ecoveda, Mr. Yashodhan Ramteke, Head of Carbon Program, MMCM. We are very thankful to all the stakeholders who are attending today's webinar to gain knowledge on the carbon credit mechanism. May I request my colleague, Mr. Sufyan Ansari, to please play MRAI's short introduction video.
MRAI, Voice of the Indian Recycling Industry. Often this is referred to as waste. It's everywhere. But what if it wasn't just waste? What if it was an opportunity? An opportunity to build a better future, a more sustainable India. Circularity is the answer. It encompasses recyclable materials that connect almost all spheres of human activities. For industries, it provides cost savings, resource efficiency, decarbonization, improved market access, compliance with regulations, and entrepreneurial opportunities for innovation. For society at large, it addresses waste management challenges, reducing pollution, promoting awareness and education, creating economic opportunities, and fostering community participation to become zero waste and thus sustainable in the real sense. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has envisioned a zero-waste society by 2070, and circular economy is the path to achieving this vision, where virgin resources are conserved and recyclable materials are the center of such an ecosystem. The vision also entails creating employment opportunities and doubling the earnings for rural and weaker sections of society, especially the women. India has also set its eyes to achieve SDG goals by 2030, including decarbonization targets, by following the path of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. Modi ji has launched Mission Life, Lifestyle for Environment, during India's presidency in 2023 at the G20 Summit, with the goal of having a measurable impact and motivating Indians and global citizens to take individual and group action for environmental conservation. The Material Recycling Association of India, with over 1,500 members representing the recycling industry, shares this vision of our Honorable Prime Minister. Our collective strength comprises of over 25,000 small and medium enterprises, directly and indirectly employing 25 lakh people, promoting material recycling. MRAI is growing along with its partner associations and implementing global best practices for sustainability and circularity in India. MRAI is contributing to the various government policy interventions like National Non-Ferrous Metal Scrap Recycling Framework, action plans for circular economy for ELVs, solid waste, batteries, e-waste, metals and other waste and scrap, steel scrap policy, vehicle scrappage policy, EPRs on plastic, tires, e-waste, ELVs and batteries, JPC study on ferrous scrap market. MRAI is actively involved in the formation of BIS standards on ferrous, copper, aluminium scrap and plastics. MRAI helps to extend the reach and depth of government programs like Swachh Bharat, Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Recycling is no longer misunderstood. Today's recycled products are equal, if not better in quality and performance to those made from virgin materials. Recyclable raw materials are not only used in everyday products like footwear, furniture, but also in critical projects of global repute like Mars mission and manufacturing of Vande Bharat trains. Join the movement. Recycle. Choose recycled products. Support initiatives that promote circular economy. Together, we can build a greener, more sustainable India and the world at large. Waste is not a problem. It's a resource. Let's recycle, reuse, and build a better tomorrow. MRAI, Voice of the Indian Recycling Industry.
India is the world's third largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China and US, but has low per capita emissions of 1.8 ton CO2 compared to the global average of 4.4 tons CO2. Today, we stand at a crucial juncture in our global efforts to combat climate change while recognizing a moral responsibility towards a greener planet. Our Honorable Prime Minister took the Panchamrit pledge with targets till 2030 and India being carbon neutral by 2070. As India embarks on its journey to be the third largest economy by 2030, decoupling its progress towards a 7 trillion economy from harmful carbon emissions is imperative. India's government has a vision to develop a carbon credit trading scheme and a carbon market to help achieve its climate goals. India's goal is to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2070. India aims to move away from fossil fuels and use renewable energy sources like green hydrogen, green ammonia, biomass, bioethanol. Therefore, India is the fastest growing carbon trade market and has the potential to become a global leader. India's total energy consumption will undoubtedly continue to increase to meet the country's economic and development priorities. While decarbonization and net zero are long-term goals for India going by its NDCs, the 2030 goal aims only to reduce overall emissions intensity. This contrasts with the developed nations where carbon pricing is a key tool to decarbonize. So, the purpose of Indian carbon market should be to go beyond emissions reduction and ensure cleaner source of energy, manage demand transitions, attract investments, and promote the adoption of energy efficient technologies. The purpose of carbon market in developing countries like India differs from those already designed in the West and China. In the developed world market are meant to reduce total absolute emissions. In India, their purpose, at least in the short term to medium term, is to increase energy efficiency and reduce emissions per unit of output. While continue to drive economic expansion, India has yet to reach its emission peak in its present development trajectory. The goal is to move towards a more efficient use of energy, switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy as a power generation increases. Carbon trading is intended to reduce emissions per unit of output while still driving economic growth. India currently operates two market-based emissions reduction scheme, Performance Achieve and Trade, PAT scheme, and the Renewable Energy Certificates, REC systems. Through the national carbon market, the Indian government will create an additional avenue for entities to trade carbon certificate apart from the voluntary market. India is believed to be the second largest source of carbon offset globally. I'm sure today's deliberation will highlight more on the potential market of Indian stakeholders. I once again thank you all for sparing your valuable time for participating at this webinar. Now, I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Pramod Shinde, to take it ahead.
Thank you, Amarji. Thank you for your wonderful welcome note. Yeah, I'm very thankful to all the joining stakeholders as well. At the same time, we have that very good panel, distinguished panelists for today's webinar. I'm sure that today's deliberation will highlight more on the potential market. The circular carbon economy builds on the principle of the circular economy, and it applies them to managing carbon emissions. This will have more to the purpose of today's webinar is to go beyond the reducing emissions to ensure cleaner energy sources, manage demand perception, transition, and attract more investment. It will also highlight to reduce the carbon that must be managed in the first place. And in the second phase, to reuse carbon as an input to create a feedstock and fuels. And third one is to recycle carbon through the natural carbon cycle with bioenergy and unique to the CCE carbon circular carbon economy. And the fourth one is to remove the excess carbon and store it. So moving forward, we are very positive to have this today's distinguished panelists will highlight more on these other topics. With this, may I request Mr. Sanjay Mehta ji, President of MRAI, and he is a director of MTC Group. The MTC Group is a more than 5 decades old business group employing more than 5,000 personnel in India as well as outside India. The MTC Group has business activities in dealing ferrous and non-ferrous, ferroalloys, iron ore, coking coal, manufacturing steel billets, rebars, structural steel, copper tubes. The group is also into the automobile dealership of Toyota cars. With this, may I request Mr. Sanjay Mehta ji to give his importance of carbon credits. That will be over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pramod, and wonderful insight of India and carbon credit market by Amar Singh. Good afternoon. I'm very happy to have with us the most recognized distinguished panelist, Mr. Irfon, Watkins, CEO of DOVU, and Mr. Ramteke, Mr. Goswami, Mr. Amar Singh, Mr. Pramod Shinde, and beautiful audience. The theme of today's webinar is focusing on carbon credits from ELV Recycling. Looking at the theme, circular carbon economy is an important concept to adopt in global efforts towards managing the world's excess CO2 emissions. Carbon dioxide performs a delicate life-sustaining function on Earth, but decades of industrialization have resulted in excessive amounts of this gas in our atmosphere. Most economies discard a significant amount of materials as waste in their initial use. The circular economic system is built around the reuse of the resources again and again. And this is a model that can easily be adopted to incorporate the world's excess carbon. A circular carbon economy is a framework for managing and reducing carbon emissions. It's a closed loop system involving reduce, reuse, recycle, and remove. As the world shifts towards sustainable practices, especially the automotive industry stands at the forefront of change. End-of-life vehicles are not just waste, they represent a vast potential for resources recovery and carbon credit generation and the system. The automotive industry faces increasing pressure to reduce carbon emissions and promote sustainability. Today's webinar will explore how effective ELV recycling contributes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and provide financial incentives through carbon credits. You all panelists will highlight and discuss on how we can build carbon credit system in India. The carbon credits are a financial mechanism that allow business and individuals to offset their greenhouse gas emissions by investing in projects that reduce or remove emissions from the atmosphere. One carbon credit represents the reduction or removal of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent CO2 emissions. They play a key role in addressing climate change by incentivize sustainable practices and funding projects that mitigate carbon emissions. How carbon credits benefit recyclers? For recyclers, carbon credits offer a new revenue stream by quantifying and monetizing the environmental benefits of recycling activities. Recycling reduces emissions by avoiding energy-intensive extractions of raw materials and minimizing waste into the system. Recyclers can generate carbon credits by demonstrating measurable reduction in GHG emissions from their past processes, making recycling more economically viable while contributing to global climate goals. I'm very much confident that today's expert domain panelists will highlight the mechanism and its potential market for Indian recycling stakeholders while achieving circularity and sustainability. Thank you very much once again, Pramod and Amar, to invite me on this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for highlighting how recycler can generate this carbon credit by demonstrating the measurable reductions in GHG emission. That is certainly going to be the biggest challenge for and what is all the attending stakeholders. They are really looking forward to have more key insight from our, the domain experts. So with this, thank you, Sanjay ji. And now may I request to invite Mr. Yashodhan Ramteke, Head of Carbon Program, MMCM. Mr. Yashodhan is Ramteke is currently served as Assistant Vice President at MMCM, where he heads the decarbonization unit. In this capacity, he specializes in automobile circularity, driving the initiative that focus on reducing carbon emission and promoting sustainable practices within the automobile industry as well. His leadership is critical in steering MMCM efforts towards a greener, more sustainable future. With this, may I request Yashodhan to over to you now to put you highlight the current state of international carbon market and ELV carbon credit opportunities, as well as you can highlight, please, generation of carbon credits through recycling of materials from ELVs. Over to you.
Thank you, Pramod ji. Good afternoon to all the panelists, the experts globally in terms of carbon markets. Thank you to all the attendees for giving your time. I'm just sharing my screen. Give me a minute. Yeah, today I will be talking about a very important subject and which is of very huge importance to India as a country. We are going to talk about end of life vehicle carbon credits. So who we are, MMCM is basically an envirotech enterprise focused on creating digital ecosystems around circular economy. We call ourselves automotive circularity orchestrators. MMCM works with nearly all stakeholders in the automotive circularity domain, like recyclers, auto OEMs, material recovery, scrapping units, the banks, all the major stakeholders who are involved in automotive circularity. Why this becomes very important and why automotive circularity and ELVs are important is because India currently is the third largest consumers and third largest producers of vehicles globally. And the Western countries have started recycling ELVs, tackled the problem quite early on, but India as a country, we have recently started. And we have to promote being such a huge country and with such huge consumption. The ELVs pose a very important challenge. And the recyclers or the RVSFs play a very important and pivotal role in the success of this policy. So with this, I'll just go ahead and tell you, as I was telling you, that we are working with nearly most of the stakeholders in the automotive circularity industry. And we realize that the RVSFs, with the policy of government which has come of voluntary vehicle recycling, the success of the policy depends a lot on the RVSFs or the registered vehicle scrapping facilities. When in India, this being a very new setup, most of the RVSFs have put their setup, but the kind of feed which they are getting is not up to the mark that they are profitable. So we were looking at opportunities where we can have some kind of financial viability funding to be provided to the RVSFs. When we were doing that, we started identifying if there can be any quantification of the savings, carbon savings, which this RVSFs are enabling. So with this in mind, the MMCM team started looking at UN CDM methodologies on material recovery and risk. When we were doing that, we also consulted a lot of international and national experts on creating a carbon project from RVSF material recovery. Once this initial consultation happened, we started discussing the ELV scenario with one of our partners, that is HBAR Foundation. So HBAR Foundation specifies is an international foundation or an international chain where companies like Tata, Wipro, IIT Madras, Boeing, Dell are part of this chain, and they focus on ecological credits. So HBAR basically helped us in aligning the ELV projects with the CDM methodologies which are focused on material recovery and circularity. That is the point of time where HBAR introduced us to our UK partner, which is DOVU. Irfon is also one of the panelists who will take you into the details of the technicalities of it. But with HBAR and DOVU, we started using IWA framework and Guardian frameworks to register the credits on DOVU, which is on Hedera's platform, ecological credit platform. With this, with some two RVSFs as the pilot year, we were able to generate around 575 ELV credits, which have enabled around savings of 345 tons of CO2. So this was a pilot phase which went on very successfully, and we have sold more than half the credits on an international platform. After the pilot phase ran into a successful stage, we then started creating a project with most of the working RVSFs in India, and then we realized all the steps of actually creating a carbon credit project. The pilot phase was just ELV credits. This was not a carbon credit project, but it had enabled the carbon savings. But now we are moving towards a more traditional carbon credit generation process. So I'll tell you what are the specific steps which we are doing when we are actually enrolling RVSFs to able to help them generate carbon credits and the issuance process. So one of the first process is we do the KYC checklist of all RVSFs. So when they have started all their compliances, everything is done. Once the checklist of RVSF is done, the second phase which goes is the feasibility study for the data. So the data assessment is done, what kind of data they are keeping, what is the data giving. Once the KYC and the data stage is over, the next stage is very important, which is the operational audit of RVSF. So MMCM expert teams, plus we have some partners who are third-party auditors. They visit the RVSF and look at their operations. So operations of RVSF is very, very important because this determines the kind of credits which the RVSFs can generate. So two RVSFs scrapping the exact number of vehicles may generate different carbon credits. Most of this will depend on the operational ability of the RVSF. So that operational ability depends on what kind of power source they are using. If they are using a renewable source, definitely their carbon savings will be more. What kind of equipments are they using at their RVSF location? Are the equipments more power intensive, or are they friendly? What are the compliances which they are doing with the government norms and all these things? So process streamlining is also very, very important when it comes to carbon credit generation. After the operation audits are done, the next step, which is very important for MRV, is that we have developed a data capturing mechanism, which is a DMRV enabled data capture mechanism. This ensures that there is a complete traceability to each individual vehicle which is being scrapped. So the problem of greenwashing and double counting is completely taken care of. Once this data is captured through DMRV, the next stage which comes in the process is the audits by the standards registry and validation and verification body. Once this validation and verification happens through the VVB, which is nominated by the registry and standard, once the verified data comes, the data is then credits are issued post the successful validation and verification for the from the VVB. So when we are now, after talking about the process, let us say that what exactly is the calculations which goes behind the carbon savings. What is enabling the carbon savings? So we have seen that what the methodologies which we have adopted are from UNCDM, which talks about material circularity. Typically, it is AMS3, AG, and BA, and the emission calculations are quite complex. But just for the sake of ease, I'll just demonstrate what the ERs are, or the emission reductions are. So we take the baselines of the materials minus the project emissions minus the leakage of the project. So if you see your baseline emissions, so your ELVs typically has three or four type of material. They will have metals. Metals are ferrous, non-ferrous. They will have plastics. They will have glass. They will have batteries, e-waste, and all other materials. So most of these materials, their baselines are looked at, and when single ton of material is recovered, what is the kind of emissions which are gone while recovering and recycling it are measured, and this on a very higher side gives you the emission reduction savings. Just this is a very sample calculation. Just for the understanding bit, we have here taken, if you're seeing on the right hand side, we have taken a material composition for a typical passenger vehicle. We have considered the weight to be nearly a ton of a vehicle. So for a ton of vehicle with standard processes and other things, nearly 0.5967 tons of CO2 equivalent of saving is enabled. So where we have taken steel, aluminium as the metals which are present, and then we have taken plastics, glass, and other precious metals, batteries which are there while doing the carbon savings. After the calculation, what is the kind of exact project structure which MMCM is following when we are doing this project? So the structure which MMCM follows is called as POA structure, that is program of activities. So this structure definitely has advantages. I'll talk about the advantages in the next slide. So here what MMCM is doing is it is putting RVSFs as PAs or the program activities, and MMCM is working as a managing entity where a similar kind of RVSFs are put into a bucket and a CPA is created out of a bunch of RVSFs. The first phase, we are looking at around 10 to 12 RVSFs which will be there as a part of the first phase of the POA. There for a bunch of 3 to 4 RVSF, we will put them as one CPA, and for them this CPA DD will be made. The CPA DD for 3-4 bunch of RVSFs will be created, and this CPA DD will be then published on the registry account. Now let me tell you what is the difference between a POA and a project activity. So basically let us go to the definition of what POA is. POA is basically a framework which allows the inclusion of multiple similar activities, CPAs, over time under a single registration. Whereas a PA is a standalone carbon project registered individually for emission reductions. The scope for a program of activities is multiple CPAs can come under one umbrella under the POA. Whereas in project activity, only one specific project activity which is aimed at reducing emissions can come as a PA. The geographical coverage of program of activities is it can include activities across different regions. In PA, usually it is restricted to a single region or location. Now, flexibility is one more very important point when it comes to POA. So it is highly flexible. New CPAs can be added over time without need for a separate registration. Whereas for a project activity or a standalone project, it is very difficult and it is very less flexible. Any new activity would require a separate registration and approval process. Now let me tell you what are the cost efficiencies when it comes to POA. So when we have economies of scale, a lot of people doing a similar kind of project, a POA structure actually gives you economies of scale, reducing the registration, validation, and monitoring times cost for CPAs. Whereas if it would have been a PA, the cost for each PA for registration for all VVBs will go very high. Typically, the cost for this goes around to around 50-60 lakh of rupees if it is a POA. Now, if it is a PA or a single standalone project. But when we are doing it under POA, the cost for PAs is reduced very, very significantly. Similarly, along with the cost, the time also gets reduced very drastically. The reason is the monitoring and reporting, because the monitoring and reporting in a POA method is centralized, and reporting frameworks for all CPAs are under the POA framework. Whereas for PAs, it requires its own monitoring, reporting, and verification methodologies. Registration time again for POAs is quite faster because once the CPA is registered, once the POA is registered, the CPAs can be added quite flexibly. For PAs, longer as each project must go through full registration individually. Now, after this, these are the ecosystem partners which are working with MMCM and MRAI for the ELV carbon credit project. We have IIT Bombay, Hedera, Eco Registry, Sir Carbono, Ecoveda is a partner. Terry is also a knowledge partner. Now, after this, I will tell you just why DMRV is very important. What you must have seen is what I have been trying to tell you is one of the major advantages of this project is MMCM has enabled DMRV in the whole carbon project when it comes to ELV. So this increases the value of the credits very high. The reason is it is the real time and accurate data collection. So the real time data collection actually enhances the transparencies very well, and you can see exactly which kind of metal plastics are recovered. This ensures also that there is a transparent reporting of actual emission reductions which are reduced, and the data accuracy is very high because it is automated digital systems which reduces the risk of human errors and ensures the accuracy of emission reductions is very crucial for validating the carbon credit project. Again, DMRU is very cost efficient also because it very drastically reduces the burden of doing a manual administration and reporting process. Also, because it is DMRB enabled, the verification also can be done quite fast, which again reduces the time and manual effort of verifiers also to get the project verified. DMRV also makes this project very scalable because there is a streamlined reporting. DMRV simplifies the complex process of tracking emission reductions and material recovery across multiple recycling facilities. It enables scalability by automating the monitoring of large volume of ELV processed across different locations. And it also increases efficiency by faster verification process. DMRV also improves the compliances and traceability. DMRV ensures that all recycling activities and carbon credits scheme are compliant with regulatory standards and carbon protocols. It makes it easier to track the entire life cycle of ELVs and verify the end use of recycled material. Traceability of material is very important. It allows for complete traceability of material recovered from ELVs, ensuring that credits are issued only for a legitimate recycling activity and reduce the potential for fraud or double counting of carbon credits. Again, it enhances the stakeholder confidence because all the process is very transparent. Even the buyer, when he is actually trying to buy a ELV credit, he can be very assured that every traceability is maintained, and even the credit with the fractional credit to the last vehicle is possible through the DMRV process, and this also will help the buyer take care of the greenwashing claims. Again, with the whole DMRE process, it also enables advanced analytics and optimization of the processes of the RVSFs, and it will increase the operational efficiency of the RVSFs as well by giving the very advanced analytics and data, where the RVSFs can also increase their potential. Now, what are the highlights of ELV carbon credits? The ELV carbon credits, one of the basic things, as I told you, is the benefit for recyclers. It gives you the financial incentives. The financial incentives of carbon credits provide a revenue stream for recyclers, incentivizing them to process end-of-life vehicles efficiently and sustainably. By generating carbon credits through recycling process, the recyclers can offset some of their operational costs. Investment in technology, the kind of carbon credit fund which RVSFs can get or the recyclers can get, they can again invest it into advancing the technologies and processes, which can lead to better resource recovery and reducing environmental impacts. Again, through the carbon credits, the availability of carbon credits also can motivate recyclers to improve their recycling practices, thus ensuring that leads to a better recycling rates. So the recyclers will be motivated and incentivized to actually increase their recycling rates of the material which are recovered. Again, the highlights of ELV carbon credit is, as I was telling you, this is a very important policy even for Government of India in terms of resource utilization as well as health of the public. So this policy or this ELV carbon credit aligns completely with the policies of Government of India, the VVMP, which aims to promote responsible vehicle disposal and recycling. Carbon credits can support these goals by providing a financial mechanism that encourages compliance with policy. Promoting best practices by linking carbon credits to best practices in recycling, VVMP can foster a culture of sustainability among manufacturers and recyclers alike, and reinforcing the importance of responsible end-of-life vehicle management. The carbon credits can also help measure the environmental impact of recycling operations, providing data that supports the effectiveness of VVMP in reducing emissions associated with vehicle disposal. Now, one of the major sectors, as Sanjay also was telling, and some of the panelists were telling before, that automobile sector is a huge contributor to the GDP in terms of GDP, but it is also a huge contributor to the GHG gases. So decarbonization of automobile sector is very important, and the ELV carbon credits will play a huge role in decarbonization of automobile sectors. It reduces the greenhouse gas emissions by incentivizing the end of life vehicles carbon credit to promote use of material in new vehicles, thereby lowering the overall carbon footprints of the automobile sector. Again, through the ELV carbon credits enables better tracking and accounting of emissions throughout the vehicle life cycle, encouraging stakeholders to adopt practices that minimize their environmental impact. One of the major things, again, what it will do is encourage sustainable designs in the automobiles itself. The framework of carbon credit can promote the design of vehicles that are easier to recycle, further enhancing sustainability and reducing waste in the automobile sector. So, scope 3 category 12 talks about end of the emissions which are there from the end of life processing. So with this data, it would be very important for auto OEMs to take this data and promote designs which are more friendly towards end of life recycling. With this, I end my session. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashodhan ji. Thank you for your such a elaborative and very exhaustive presentation. I'm sure definitely we are going to email this presentation to all these stakeholders who are joining today's webinar, as well as our existing customers also. It is very informative to all of us. Just to one quick question that you mentioned about that the benefit of recyclers. How do you see that the benefit of end of life vehicles recyclers? I know that they are operating at a very minuscule capacity utilization, and then how this your solution, your package will be helpful for them to generate the carbon credits while doing this in India.
Thank you, Pramod ji, for the question. I think this is very important. We have been listening to the policy being in a place in India, and with the policy, there were a lot of people who want recyclers who are very responsible and wanted to help the policy by implementing their RVSS. The kind of investment which has gone into the RVSS is quite huge, and the processes which they are following are also in line with what most of the good RVSS are following, what government and the local bodies are telling them to follow. So with all the infrastructure which has gone inside, the cost and the processes which they are following, there is a huge financial viability gap for the recyclers, because the feed of ELVs which was expected to come is very less in India. They are facing a huge competition even with the unorganized sector. So this credits will actually, the money from carbon credits will actually help the recyclers get more benefit, and they can actually give better prices for to compete with the unorganized sector and get more vehicles in the formal recycling way.
Yeah, I know that the present capacity ELV recyclers are really struggling with the informal market as well. And looking at that, what will be the quantum of carbon credits you are expecting to generate from the ELVs recyclers from India in the next, say, by 2030? If you can just give some kind of projection, that will be the very
So this is actually quite difficult to quantify currently right now, because we're just in the data collection and this phase. But as I told you, on with some of our initial calculations, what we saw that nearly for a ton of vehicle, with the right kind of processes followed, and if the emissions followed, nearly 0.6 tons of carbon emission savings are enabled. So it is usually on the weight of material which is recovered and the kind of emissions or which goes while doing the processing of the material, which quantifies the emission savings.
So from the present line of operations on the ELV market, like, do you have any model which has been really that end of life vehicle recyclers has already got successful transition in the international market while selling the carbon credit?
So for ELVs, there are not any cases, but for material recovery and material recycling, there are quite good cases. In fact, one of the very good cases is in India, where we have Atero as one of the e-waste recyclers who has successfully registered his project in UNCDM. And the project was live from 2013 till 2023. So these are some of the projects in material recovery which have been very successful globally. There are projects throughout the world also. I think we have other panelists who are expert in the global market. Irfon and Tridip may also throw some lights on the international projects.
Okay, thank you very much, Yashodhan. We will take some questions from the audience. I would request the attending delegates can put forward their particular questions to the Yashodhan in the chat box so that which we can take it in a later stage. So with this now, may I request Mr. Tridip Goswami, founding director of Ecoveda Climate LLP. Mr. Tridip is a carbon market professional having almost 2 decades of both technical and managerial experience in the field of climate change mitigation, removal, and adaptation efforts, and renewable energy, including hydrogen energy as well. Tridip is now founding director of Ecoveda Climate, a cutting-edge carbon projects development and consulting startup. He's also a technical advisor for Assam Agroforestry Development Board, Government of Assam, and a strategic advisor for H2 Next, an entity with green hydrogen solution. With this, may I welcome this Mr. Tridip Goswami. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Thank you, Pramod ji, and thank you, Yas, for your beautiful presentation. I think we have less time, but then I have a presentation, and if I'm little bit getting difficulty in sharing the presentation, so I have shared it in group. Yes, can you share that one, please?
Yeah, my colleague Mr. Sufyan will share it.
Okay. Yeah. So till Sufyan shares, I'll just a little bit know about Ecoveda, and I'm really thankful to MRAI for inviting me to talk on carbon savings from recycling industry. And already we are working together with MMCM to develop a carbon project methodology, which was not there in any of the registry. So we are working with Sarkar Banu, and MMCM is supporting us to develop the methodology. So Ecoveda is basically an entity of carbon project development and management, and we have almost 23 employees who are experts in carbon market and the cumulative experience is almost 100+ years. And we are experienced in developing different kind of methodologies, developing program in carbon market, both in FLU and non-FLU sector. And when we say non-FLU sector, these are the sectors, even the recycling industry also comes under FLU sector, and non-FLU sector. And under FLO sector, we bring all these nature-based solutions program. So can you see the presentation now?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is about Ecoveda, and scope 3 emission has been neglected in carbon market over the years. So in the last 20 years, there are, as Yas was saying, there is hardly 1 or 2 projects from India, and most of those projects have not gone beyond 2 or 3 years of verification. So there is only one project which has got 10 years carbon credit from the overall crediting period. So when every one of you know that scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, these are the 3 emissions which we divide. And especially under scope 1, you talk about fuel combustion, and then if we talk about company vehicles, if a company bring those vehicles, and then other fugitive emissions. And when it is about scope 2, we talk about purchase the electricity, heat, and steam in an industry. Whereas in scope 3, there are various items you can bring under, like any goods and service you purchase, any travel you do, employees even commuting to the office or any other areas. It comes under scope 3. Use of sold products, transportation and distribution, both in up and downstream products. Even the investment, you will be surprised, probably we can talk at a later stage. Investment also comes under scope 3. Lease assets and franchises, those are also, it comes under scope 3. But waste disposal, which basically we talk about under material circularity and recycling. So that comes under scope 3. If I there are, probably every one of you know about net zero. So scope 3 emissions and net zero, if we talk about, then this includes basically emissions from supply chain, emissions from the transportation of goods, as I have mentioned, employee commuting, business travel. If you are constructing a new buildings, also the carbon emissions from those new buildings. Then various products, which have been used by various customers in the downstream stakeholders. So those also comes under emissions, and waste disposal, definitely it is under scope 3 emission. So right now, net zero, when we talk about scope 1 and 2, the whole world is talking about scope 1 and 2, but there are very little attention to scope 3. But we believe that without scope 3 emissions, and discussing about scope 3 emission, bringing funding or managing the emissions, net zero is not going to be achieved by any entities. Now, if I talk about importance of scope 3 emission in the carbon market, it's a huge scope we can discuss. But then, value chain emissions. So we divide these scope 3 emissions in 4 parts. One is value chain emission, investor and regulatory pressure, voluntary target setting initiatives, need for assurance, transparency, and standardization. These are 4 major, categories we can bring under carbon market. Basically, you first talk about value chain emission, then what are the regulation and investors demand. So based on that, we can take different measures as far as science-based target initiative. Discuss about those under carbon market. And then every entity, they can they already have come up with ambitious climate targets, so which also includes scope 3 emission. Although as I have mentioned, carbon market has never given attention to the scope 3 emissions. So lack of methodology, lack of monitoring and verification, methodology as far as standard is also concerned. There are lack of inclusion of scope 3 emission into it. What we see basically, when up with any entities, when they come up with these targets, so their first problem they see is the accounting. The accounting is because of traceability is not there in scope 3. Then reporting is one issue, and then investment. In these kind of program, investment is still not clear because there are huge complexities one can find. So these difficulties basically have impeded significant investment in scope 3 reduction initiatives, which needs to be brought as per scope 2 or scope 1 emissions. And our process, as an entity, we are trying to work on that. And then number 4 is that assurance on these initiatives. Like if I say, or an entity, if they say that okay, under scope 3, just to make it generalized, what I want to say is that any entity, if they claim something that okay, from scope 3 emission they are reducing some amount of carbon emission, so there needs to be assurance service from accredited agencies, like greater assurance, transparency, and standardization of these 3 things. Basically, on monitoring and verification, if we can have assurance, we can bring transparency. Probably Irfon will be talking on that. And standardization of those monitoring and verification process, that will help to bring scope 3 emissions under carbon market, and it will make at par with scope 2 and scope 1. Now, as I have mentioned, there are huge challenges. When I was talking about, probably for participant, it will be a lot of people, they will be knowing about CBAM. So when we say investor and regulatory pressure, if I don't mention about CBAM, probably it will not be, wiseful. So carbon CBAM is nothing but is a carbon border adjustment mechanism. It's a new European Union's instrument for preventing carbon leakage, which is basically a release of emissions to non-EU countries. The mechanism is applied to so-called, CBAM goods imported to the EU from outside the EU. It includes, for example, again, we can talk about, recycled products, mostly in iron and steel products, fertilizers, aluminum and cement industries. As well as, hydrogen and electricity also have been included in CBAM. The objective of the mechanism is for the prices of good imported to the EU to reflect more accurately in their carbon content. The CBAM also aims to encourage third countries, foreign producers or manufacturers and EU importers to reduce their emissions. So probably we can talk more about CBAM at a later event. Now, on scope 3, I am giving three importance in three sectors. I want to give importance, which will be probably helpful for the MRAI, members. One is the plastic collection and recycling. Second is that solar industry and solar panel recycling. And third is that, steel industry. So even ELV also, steel or metal industry, if we say that the one where we are working on that ELV, that also accounts most of the, metals and steel under, end of life vehicles recycling. So as far as plastic is concerned, there is, various registries which have come up with or various standards which have come up with their methodologies. But I want to talk about, the Vera plastic collection and recycling. Basically, 385 million tons of plastics was generated as a waste in 2019 itself. There is a whole, this is old value, the number will be higher. And basically, in developed countries, almost 85 to 86% of plastic leakage still happens. Even after, there is a, carbon mechanism whereby you can get carbon, not carbon credit, it's a plastic credit for collection and recycling of plastic products. So there is a huge gap of funding. As I have mentioned, there are issues as far as scope 3 emissions funding is concerned. So in plastic recycling and collection also, there is a gap of almost like $40 billion. So that is the funding gap. And through plastic, plastic credit probably will be able to reduce some gap. And then, the recycler, they can definitely consider about developing their program under plastic credit. So there is two credit. In fact, you get two different kind of credits. One is for waste collection. It's under Vera plastic program, and one is for recycling. Other than that, these are the applicability criteria, plastic waste recycling methodology requirements. We have new recycling facilities, capacity additions, and technology improvement. On that, you get, these are eligible for, plastic credit. Increase in the collection and or sorting of plastic waste also. So as I have mentioned, that handling of plastic, collection of plastic also will give you plastic credit. And then increase in mechanical recycling of plastic waste. So whatever you are doing right now, above that, if you want to do a capacity addition, you want to improve your technology, and you want to bring more mechanical recycling process into it, you are eligible for, plastic credit. There are different technologies, for example, reprocessing, mechanical recycling, incineration with energy recovery, chemical recycling. And also, if you prevent, plastic waste from going to landfill, for that also you can claim, plastic credit. So, what are the source you can get? So, anything from environment, anything from landfill, anything from open burning, anything from incineration, for those plastic you are ready, if you collect and recycle, you are eligible to get credit. In fact, from households or any other waste management options, from where you collect and recycle, you are eligible for plastic credit. So now there are, lithium ion batteries is one where we can talk about, there are methodologies already. There are methodologies which have been kept on hold by Vera, and probably that methodology will be removed, and there is a new need of new methodology to bring carbon credit under recycling of batteries. So for India specifically, if we talk about India, since we don't have major source of lithium, so the whole circular economy concepts on batteries is definitely is a must at this point of time. And there are 34 metric ton of greenhouse gas emissions, and almost $35 billion of economic value is associated with lithium ion batteries. Then there is a huge recycling potential in India itself. And then battery waste management rules already have come up by government of India. 30% collection by 2022 itself, it has been decided, but it has not been achieved. And so there is a huge scope of recycling of battery. I'm trying to minimize my discussion on on battery. On solar waste, whereas till now, till 21st century, we are talking about generation and efficiency improvement of solar panels. So there is a very less discussion on solar panel circularity. So if we talk about what solar panel recycling can give us, most of the recycling of metal and plastic, glass, already the process is known. But as an industry, the renewable energy industry, both solar and wind, there is a huge scope of recycling those projects as an industry to bring those material to the circular economy. So we have almost 292 gigawatt of solar capacity target by 2030. So you can think about current waste at this point of time itself, 100 kiloton of solar waste is there in India, and by 2030 we are expecting almost 34 kiloton of solar waste. And if we are ready to achieve 292 gigawatt of watt of solar capacity, the 600 kiloton of solar waste it can reach by 2030, and 19,000 kiloton by 2050. These are the numbers from we have considered it from CEW's report. And as of now, in carbon market, there are no specific methodology as far as solar solar industry is concerned. You can definitely recycle those products under there are different methodologies. AMS3AJ was there, which is now only available in Ghana, in gold standard, but Vera has removed that one. But there is a new methodology coming up which is known as VMR 0007, and probably on that we can develop project from solar. Then again, when I talk about steel industry, before that I just want to give some data that global solar panel recycling market is today is at around $402 million US, and which growth rate EPA is considering as 12.45% from 2024 to 2030 itself. This growth rate is driven by the rapid increase in solar energy installation worldwide, especially in developing countries also, leading to more decommissioned solar panels. So as for example, in India itself, if you talk about solar history, so around 2000 onwards, there are solar PV power projects. All these panels reach to end of their lifespan. 20 years, if you consider also, already the lifespan is over. There is a growing need for efficient and eco-friendly recycling solutions only for that particular industry in India itself. Without proper recycling, these panels again will, end up like other waste to landfills, and then, the condition will be like another e-waste. Recycling helps to reduce landfill waste and its environmental impacts, as you know. The rise in solar panel uses, along with extended producer responsibility programs, encourages manufacturer to manage their products, end of life effectively. This accountability prompts them to invest in recycling infrastructure and design more sustainable products. So when we from carbon market talk about, solar panel recycling, we try to bring that whatever gap for, to solar panel recycling is there, we try to reduce that gap by bringing carbon investment into those into those industries. Now there is a, on steel, we can again discuss on, on another, because it's a huge topic when we talk about, steel recycling, recovery and recycling of metals. At this point of time, there are methodologies whereby, you can develop, you can get credit for, recovery and recycling of metals. And especially if we talk about Indian scenario, so India's steel sector accounts for about 12% of the total greenhouse gas emission. It's a huge number, and the emission intensity itself is, 2.5 ton of carbon dioxide per ton of raw steel. So compared to a global average of 1.9 tons, it is because of, the energy. It's an energy intensive industry, as you know. So this is the, 2.55 is a huge number. So probably this is one area all the recyclers can think about, recovering the metals and get credit from, carbon market. Already Ministry of Steel has prepared a roadmap, and the BE under India's, CCTS program also has done the baseline already and have created a task force also on that. Steel scrap recycling policy 2019 is already there, how to, recover and process or recycle the, the various ferrous scrap materials. And then this policy also provides standardized guidelines, to come up with recycling or the dismantling center, or the process center. So even as I have mentioned, scrapping of ELBs also will come under this framework itself. And what are the hurdles? Basically, in steel industries, we see that scrap ability is expecting to tighten as domestic consumption increases and countries reduce exports. But then the hurdles are, there are, unregulated sectors and contamination. That is one on policy side. Contamination in scrap metals. So basically, you don't get all the scrap as it is like a raw material. Cheaper scrap material from emerging economies. So various countries are coming up with their recycling product, and those are at much more, because of labor cost and availability of scrap materials, they can provide you, at less cheaper cost. And we don't have the in collection infrastructure also at this point of time. So if I talk about steel, benefits of recycling, if we talk about, the steel is the most recycled material in the world. Infinite recycling without loss of properties. Permanent material, there is nothing you are going to lose. Easy magnetic separation and recovery. So it's very easy to process that. And then raw material conservation, and which help also, 70% of energy savings in steel industries. Steel, if you come up with a raw steel, compared to that, if you go for scrapping of steel, 70% of energy consumption you can reduce. So with that, I'm really thankful to the audience, so to the participants, and for any question, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Thank you, Tridip ji. Looking at this, you did mention about that scope 3 has been neglected from India's perspective, and particularly in that we have got the waste disposal as well as this waste disposal, as well as we can say about the net zero target set by the government of India. What would be the your quick, suggestions for the Indian government point of view? What will be the key point government should be highlighting, taking care of that, so that at least our success rate for the execution of this policy will be much more high than uh,
Okay.
what you say.
Thank you, Pramod. See, as as a carbon market expert, we can only say that government needs to bring all the stakeholders together, considering the CBAM also in loop, and because that is a huge economic loss if we can't, come up with at par with CBAM's rules and regulations. The idea, in fact, we were discussing with Niti Aayog also. The idea for the government is to bring all the stakeholders together. There should be, ban, even if it is not ban, at least, to regularize the unregulated sector on scrapping and recycling of metals and to bring them under government's policy and then incentivize them at least for few years, incentivize them and to bring them under Article 6.2 of Paris Agreement, and that will help this industry a lot.
Okay, that will be so nice. So in the next phase of this thing, Tridip ji, we would like to organize commodity-wise very exclusively along with the case studies. That will be very helpful for the audience per se. Like though you have touched upon the no elaboratively commodity-wise, but in the
Right.
second phase, we will be organizing the series of webinar in which we would like to again invite to taking one case study for one particular industry. For example, you mention of the steel is a very important topic for all stakeholders for in the next webinar also. So thank you very much, Tridip ji, for our next speakers, which is Mr. Irfon Watkins, CEO of DOVU. As Mr. Irfon is basically Irfon Watkins is the founder and CEO of DOVU. DOVU is a bringing blockchain benefits to the mobility space to reward that data sharing, creating a circular economy. A serial entrepreneurs, Irfon has founded and sold companies across the data spectrum. Before founding DOVU, he was a founder of and CEO of Kokul, a programmatic video advertising company processing over 15 billion requests a month from over 118 companies. So over to you, Mr. Irfon Watkins. So
Actually, thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be speaking to you, and thanks for MRAI for the invite. I'm going to try and share a screen with you now and see if that will work. And then I can...
Before he starts, I would like to mention all the stakeholders that Mr. Irfon is going to talk on the current state of international carbon market and ELV carbon credit opportunity for India as well. That will be the very interesting for all of us. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. As I say, I'm trying. Hi. Yeah, I am attempting to share the screen at the moment, so yeah. Bear with me.
My colleague is going to share it. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. I think I've got it here. You should be able to see that now. So basically, what we're a technology platform. DOVU is a technology platform, and it's built on blockchain. And what we do is enable environmental, ecological, and real-world assets to be processed and registered on chain, to enable them to be fully verified, audited, and marketed, basically. So it enables suppliers of carbon and real-world assets and environmental projects to have their projects available for the demand partners to purchase them, which is obviously a pretty pretty important thing. We're a global business. We've got offices in Europe and in Dubai. Our first investor was Jaguar Land Rover, which is obviously part of the Tata family, and we build our technology on Hedera, where Tata again is part of the governing council. So there's some link there to India. What I'm going to talk about really is the overall global opportunity. You know, when we talk about the environmental impact, I think our previous speakers talked a lot about that and sort of highlighted the importance of making sure that we do that. I'm going to sort of talk a little bit more about the financial sort of model and the financial challenges and opportunities that exist, and especially in the voluntary carbon market space where we play our role. It's, you know, it's a very, very large market valued at 2.3 billion and, you know, growing hugely. The size and the growth, though, actually hasn't taken into consideration the impact of AI that is going to have on the need for carbon and the need for burning carbon in order to fuel the AI sort of marketplaces and the AI technologies. So so this number is going to increase dramatically. So we're seeing a very large sort of increase. The key players are the buyers, the sellers, the intermediaries, the corporations, who are sort of investing in these sort of activities, whether that's right across the scale from different carbon projects, you know, through to different sort of organizations and companies that are requiring this sort of carbon. I mean, the key driver of this sort of market growth is really corporate commitments. That's the major one. There are over 2,000 global companies now that have committed to be carbon neutral by 2030, and more likely 2050. But as I say, that doesn't take into account the requirement for their AI sort of ambitions. So therefore, from a demand side of it, the demand is just growing and growing and growing. You know, and when you add consumer demand to that, where consumers are looking for better environmental practices, more circular economies in the production and manufacturing scale, you know, and then you add into that the ESG and financial markets, where investors are sort of factoring that into their decisions. So you've got a very healthy sort of driver of market growth, not healthy for the planet, but healthy in terms of their need to find good carbon credits or good environmental credits in order to offset whatever they can't reduce. The challenge, however, you know, the challenge is basically in terms of the voluntary carbon marketplace is that there isn't any standard regulation. It's a voluntary market after all. So it has to sort of exist alongside a lot of embryonic sort of new methodologies, new verification, which basically creates a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. The quality of credits have been a long-standing concern. So quality credits is what organizations are looking for, and the quality credits are driven basically by data. They're driven by sort of transparency, and they're driven by sort of third-party verification and measurement. So that's a really critical part, and it's something that hasn't always been there in the voluntary carbon marketplace. And that also leads to huge price volatility, which makes it quite difficult, you know, for projects who want to provide carbon into the marketplace to sort of financially plan if they're unsure of what price they can actually sell carbon for. So there's definitely sort of challenges that need to be sort of managed in order for us to provide the sort of platform to meet the demand that I was talking about earlier. So one of the key things, however, that can achieve that is basically new technologies. So existing voluntary carbon marketplace is pretty much run through centralized agencies, and it's very up to now, it's very much like basically a database. You might as well just run registries on an Excel spreadsheet. That's frankly not good enough. It doesn't give enough transparency to the buyers, and it doesn't therefore build enough trust into this sort of marketplace. So what we've been doing, and where we see not just us, where the market sees this heading, is through blockchain, which will provide a public audit trail of everything that is happening regarding that credit. You will be able to understand and see exactly when that credit was created. Blockchain, removes the risk of double counting, and you'll be able to see all through the life cycle of that credit, where it is in the chain, when it was created, what methodologies were applied. And that's a really, really important, transparent sort of process, which, as I say, builds trust. We're then looking at new technologies not only in this supply, such as MMCM and the ELV, that we've been talking about today, but new technologies in terms of the measurement, reporting, and verification. So we partner with organizations that provide satellite imagery, Internet of Things devices, real-time data on the output of every project. So the buyer can take a very close look in real time in terms of the productivity and actually the transparency that these projects are doing what they said they were going to do. So technology is going to enable us to sort of speed everything up and reduce the cost as well of creating these credits, which will again benefit the sort of demand partners who need these credits to hit their goals. Excuse me. What do we do specifically to sort of make that happen? What have we built? Well, one of the biggest challenges of onboarding new methodologies is in the process of writing the methodology documentation, especially when you're going to do that globally and on scales. You've got language issues, you've got sort of methodology issues, and you've got the projects themselves who are just not skilled up at writing the project documentation. And of course, AI is helping that massively. So we've built a project developer AI tool, which will enable you to use natural language in your local language, which will then create, swift document generation, which will speed up this process to enable third-party organizations then to do verification on your methodology. And then the sort of verification boards as well can sort of sign off to say, yes, we approve this methodology and we verify it. And then when that happens, we can then tokenize that. So create a digital version of that credit, which sits on a publicly available blockchain. And we've built this on an open source technology with Hedera, who are, again, one of our investors, as well as our sort of underlying technology blockchain platform. So that enables a credit to be able to be sold. So a buyer can then take a look at the whole onboarding process, when it was verified, when it was tokenized, and then that credit can then be sold, traded in secondary markets, and then at some point, hopefully, not in the too distant future, it can be retired and that carbon can be taken out of circulation. I mean, I won't go into the sort of detail of this. I realize I'm conscious of time and we've sort of run over a little bit, but this is our workflow engine. We'll share this documentation, but basically, as a project, and a project developer, you can sort of input the methodology, you can decide what data inputs you want to put in, you can sort of create the calculations, you can do the verification record. There's continuous reporting as a result of the technologies that we use, and that enables third-party verification. All that does, it increases trust in your project, and the more trust you get in this world, certainly in the global voluntary carbon world, trust equals more money. So the higher the trust, the higher value of your credit. And by digitizing it, it enables credits to be sent globally very, very quickly and as I say, for the credits to be immediately retired where appropriate, and remove the ability or the sort of risk of double counting any of these credits. Regarding the ELV opportunity specifically, what's exciting for us is that we can tokenize these certificates, make them digital. Again, we have this transparent registry that traces it from beginning to end, and again, the credible solution to offset these sort of mobility-related environmental impacts. It's such a powerful partnership, and we're really excited and honored to be working with the team in India, and we see sort of the future opportunities as being sort of huge. And I think that when you look at that from a global perspective as well, I think we have the opportunity for India to be the world leaders in this, and it's needed in order for the rest of the world to meet their environmental goals and strategies. With that in mind, I'd like to thank you very much, and like I say, we will any questions I'm very happy to take, and thank you very, very much for the opportunity to talk to you all today.
And very informative presentation. We really look forward as a MRAI on behalf of all the stakeholders. We would like to collaborate to get more details and how you're going to support those stakeholders on onboarding, verification, tokenization, and sale for the carbon credit market. As you know, India is one of the fastest growing market, and everyone wants to in the futures very soon on behalf of all the stakeholders from our side. Now we will take quick questions from the audience. There are some questions in which there was a question from Mr. Jitendra Singh, in which registry project is registered as. Take these questions. Irfon, can you take this question? In which carbon standard registry project is registered?
So for us as an organization, we are agnostic in terms of verification boards. So our job is to work with all methodologies, and in specifically sort of new methodologies that conform to UN, as this one does from the ELV perspective. We register everything in terms of on the blockchain ourselves, but we work with multiple other sort of verification bodies, whether that be Gold Standard, Vera, Eco Registry. From our perspective, it's not about the verification aspect of it. That's a choice by the project developer themselves. It's really putting on chain that the proof that verification has been done. So we're agnostic. We work with everyone in terms of what it is that whatever the project developer wants to work with, we're happy to work with.
Thank you. That you did mention about the sectors, and definitely we look forward to have your more presence as well as this close collaboration with MRAI to develop this how that technology is going to be helpful for the Indian recyclers in terms of the traceability as well. So thank you so much, Irfon. And now one more questions to how can RVSF register for trading carbon credits, and is there any pricing for the cost of each credit? How is carbon offset calculated? That question is basically to Yashodhan.
Yeah, I think this is a good question.
Hello.
Please, hello. Yeah. Pramod, I'm answering it. Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. So I think this is
yes,
a good question. As I mentioned in my presentation also, the carbon credit or carbon saving is basically calculated in terms of the material which is being recovered by the RVSS. So they have to have a trace of some data of what material they are recovering, and we have to be able to verify. It has to be in some system so that it can be verified that what is the kind of weightage of material which they are recovering. Once this material is recovered, they need to also show what is the kind of emissions which were done while recovering the material. Plus, there are some emissions which also goes into recycling of the material. So basically, with this calculation, the carbon credit savings or the carbon savings vis-a-vis a virgin material of the same quantity, like for 1 ton, is calculated. So this is how the carbon credit is calculated. For registration process, there are two types of methodologies, as I was telling you. There is something where individual RVSF can go, or if there is a methodology where there is a POA, where we also group a similar kind of projects, which is called as program of activities. And similar kind of projects can be represented under a single umbrella, and a managing entity can represent that in any registry. Usually, the time taken or the cost of registries are quite on the higher side, and the time taken is very high. So usually, it does not become a lot of times for an individual RVSF or individual recycler to go through the whole process. So for the ease of that, we also look at a POA kind of a structure, a program of activities kind of a structure, where RVSFs can become a part of any POA, specifically the kind of POA MMCM is running. Pramod, I hope this answers the question. The pricing again is, as Irfon also said, that this being a voluntary market, the pricing is very, very volatile, and it depends on a lot of factors. That is something which cannot be commented on right now. Tridip, do you want to take it? I think this is add anything to it.
No, you have already covered, and as far pricing is concerned, you are right.
Yes.
And since there are very hardly any few projects, so pricing will be decided only if there are many projects comes in. So we are working on that scope 3 itself, those areas itself, so that there is a stability in the pricing also. Now it will be like just discovering the price only.
Yeah, we're just on that. We're seeing prices range from $300 a ton to $3 a ton. That's the range of prices in the voluntary carbon market.
Yes.
So there is one more thing to questions to this Tridip ji. There is one audience question from you. How feasible are the extraction of metal for solar cells recycling? Will it be the worth considering the cost of extraction if the volume recovered is relatively small? And what percentage of metals do we recover from the solar cells?
Okay, this is really a good question. In fact, and when we are trying to do the feasibility also, we are also considering these aspects. Right now in India, there is one facility which have come up with, and they are saying that they have proven almost 84-85% of metal recovery they are doing, and even the glass recovery also almost in the range of 85-90% they are doing. As far cost is concerned, that I don't have the idea. As I have mentioned, again, it is a new sector. There is not even a single project have been developed. So there is one entity which have come up probably in Baroda, and they are coming up with a huge, almost like daily 20 metric ton of, solar recycle products they are targeting. So 85% is the recovery rate of metal parts, they're saying.
So that is so. Thank you so much.
Pramod, just one point I want to make. When I mentioned that, okay, there is a scope. So there is not even R&D has been done properly. So when I'm saying about metrology, first thing is that we'll have to do a lot of R&D, and then we can go for metrology development. But as you know that, okay, there is a huge waste already. So there will have to be something you will have to do Otherwise, if you tomorrow, even if you come up with India comes up with a solar panel manufacturer, right now we are importing it from
Yeah.
different countries. If we become solar manufacturer, then the market, like CBAM will come again, and whereby you will be unable to, you will be unable to compare your cost with, outsiders. So that is why we say, and at the same time, that recycling will give, the material again back to the, the value chain.
So thank you once again. With your all our distinguished panelists' support, we will like to make one submissions to the government on this carbon credit market. What are the stakeholders' expectation? What are the government initiative needs to be expedited further? And what are the potential demand which can be beneficial for the stakeholders? So with your kind support, we would like to make this one presentations to the government in the shortly, say another 1 week's time, with reference to our today's discussion with the stakeholders. So we once again very thank you very much for the Irfan Watkins for joining us today, as well as we also thank you very much very grateful to you as well. And we also very thankful to Tridip ji for such a wonderful presentation, and making this mission is more successful. And we would like to take your help to submit our ask for the on behalf of the stakeholders to the government in a very shortly 1 week's time. We can make this submissions also. So thank you very much, as well as I would also thankful to my MRAI board of directors, Sanjay Mehta ji, Amar Singh ji, and all our directors of MRAI for giving this opportunity for the stakeholders, creating a platform for the stakeholders, bridging the gap between stakeholders and the government. With this, we can make the announcement. We would like to create one exclusive group on behalf of the MRAI for the carbon credit vertical. We can create that, and then we can take further more questions, queries, and then suggestions from the stakeholders as well as the expert domain. With this, we can make the announcement. We are going to create a exclusive group for the carbon credit market as well. And thank you very much for joining all of you, for your sparing your valuable time. And we are going to shortly sharing all these presentations to all the attending stakeholders. So it will be very good initiatives on behalf of MRI. It will be helpful for all of us and to gain more knowledge about these sectors. Thank you very much. With this, we can conclude this webinar. I would request my yeah, I think we should wind up this seminar with you if there is any suggestion from our side. So thank you once again, all of you, all our distinguished panelists. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Thank you so much, sir.